All right, gentlemen, these are in the house.
Cousin Marv, thanks for the drink, huh? Thanks a lot,
Marv. Hello, welcome to What the Flick. Christy, Matt, Alonzo, we're talking about The Drop, based on a Dennis Lehane short story, but it does not take place in Boston, and it is also James Gandolfini's last role.
Yes, this is a movie about a couple of guys who work in a bar, which is known as a drop bar, where drug dealers and other nefarious types drop off their money and it gets picked up by other nefarious types. One of the characters is played by Tom Hardy, who comes across an abandoned puppy early on in the film, and it kind of changes his life. Let's watch the clip.
In Brooklyn, money changes hands all night long. And it's not the kind of money that you can deposit in a bank.
You hand over drop.
But all that money needs to end up somewhere. They call it a drop bar. You just hide the entire city's dirty money right in plain sight.
All your money in the bag.
Do you know what you're doing? Do you know whose money you're jacking?
Fill the bag!
I heard that cousin Marv doesn't own the bar. Some hard guys do. You're not a hard guy.
Yeah, we had a crew back in the day when we was young. And Marv, he thought he was a tough guy. Then the neighborhood changed. It wasn't enough to be tough no more. You know, you had to be mean.
You know this guy?
Oh.
Find my money.
I'm not this, and I'm not them.
Where is your cousin Marv?
And if you
sit down. When I walked into a place people set up straight, they noticed. I was respected. I was feared. And that meant something.
Are you doing something desperate? Are you doing something that we can't clean up this time?
This is pretty great, pretty solid,
I love this
solid
movie.
crime film.
I really, really liked this movie.
Go ahead.
This is a slow burn. It takes a long time but it really pays off. You do require a bit of patience through the beginning of the movie because you kind of aren't sure where it's going, and it really does take its time. But I felt like by the end, when all of the stories come together, it pays off in a way that is so satisfying and really good. And yeah, maybe a little predictable, but the execution here is so good. Performances are great. James Gandolfini, I think, is really good. Tom Hardy, I think, does a really great job here.
I love Tom Hardy in this. I always think he's great. And his character arc is the most interesting thing about this movie. And that part totally delivered for me and I thought really worked. The rest of it felt so stock, cliche, low-level gangster movie. Like, in fact, I said in my review on The Wrap that at one point I almost wrote in my notes, like, watered down Dennis Lehane, and then I wrote, oh no, wait, shit, Dennis Lehane wrote this thing.
Yes.
Gandolfini's fine. The character felt sort of familiar. A lot of this movie felt overly familiar, especially given that this guy just made Bullhead, which was so different and interesting. I mean, we had not seen a movie before about, bovine hormone smugglers, in Belgium or whatever. Exactly, and I thought that not just the milieu, but the characters were interesting, and the character motivations were interesting, and the way they interacted. So I was really excited that this guy was, he's making this, his big American movie now, and it just felt like that thing that they do with European filmmakers, where they just give them this sort of, I don't know. I love Tom Hardy's character. That progression, the performances are all generally good. I always want more Ann Dowd in anything.
I was so excited when I saw her. I know how much you love her, and she's got a little bitty part. But we just talked about the Skeleton Twins and how that's got a lot of very familiar elements to it. We've seen that kind of movie before, but it's done so well that we're okay with it. That's how this was for me as well. Yes, we've seen a lot of low-level gangster movies, but the cast is so excellent. The setting is so just entrenched and detailed and just lived in, like all the crap in their houses and the jackets they wear.
And just like the day-to-day complaints about stuff, like when when Gandolfini's character is complaining about the garbage cans, and just like this movie's grounded in a way that you really feel like these characters have real lives. Like, it's not, being gangsters is not their whole thing. It's kind of the banality of their day-to-day lives that I think heightens the drama here. And so when Gandolfini complains about having been somebody in his past, you buy it because you've had to sit through seeing him clean up the bar and deal with kind of like the quotidian things. Yes, yes, there are cliches in this, but I kind of look at this as, you go and see a symphony performed and you know what you're getting into, but it's all about the execution. And I think the execution here is enough that I was okay with some of the more cliched elements.
I'm not saying don't see it. I mean, it's certainly worth seeing. Again, Hardy's great. Matthias Schoenaerts, however you say his name. Who knew he could A, speak English, and B, do such a great Brooklyn accent?
Yeah, all their accents. They're all from someplace else that is not Brooklyn.
Yeah,
and they all do a good job.
As Dave said, whenever Noomi Rapace is in an American movie, they immediately give her like a Russian name and bring up the fact that she always sounds Eastern European or something. I know she's Scandinavian, but whatever. No, I'm not saying don't see it. I didn't love it as much as you did, just because I felt like it just felt so familiar along the way. And then the payoff was so exciting. I was like, oh, great. But by that point, I had sat through so much of the movie being kind of like.
But there are so many questions. I mean, Tom Hardy really, really keeps you guessing. He's so incredibly versatile. You look at him as something like Locke earlier this year, where it's all him and he's totally in control and he's totally confident. Here he's shattered and insecure and trying to rebuild his life, but he has secrets. I mean, they make a very big deal out of the fact that he goes to mass daily.
Right, but doesn't take communion.
Yeah. Right.
But they don't overplay that, right? Like, they don't overplay it like that.
He is, though.
Yeah. Right, but they don't overplay you get hints that there's a secret, but they don't keep reminding you, and you don't really get that telegraph till Gandolfini says later in the film, like, I know he looks mellow, but
don't be fooled.
But don't be fooled. There's
I like John Ortiz, by the way, as the
John Ortiz is great in this.
Character.
There's the scene where Hardy has one of the early scenes with the character played by the guy from Bullhead.
Matthias
Schoenaerts, where they're negotiating the money for the dog,
right.
And Tom Hardy turns on his look. Like, you see him make a decision that, if you know what to look for, it's terrifying because we've seen that look in him before, and it pays off, and it's great. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, I did too. So let's do numbers then, please. What's your number?
9.
What's your number?
I gave it a 6.2, which this is a film that people will enjoy and is worth seeing. I just spent so much of the movie kind of feeling like I'd seen all this before, and the twists at the end were worth it, but it was a little late for me.
Okay, so I give it an 8. Totally solid, totally worthwhile, dramatic, riveting, mysterious, thrilling.
77 on the tomato meter.
Yeah, 7.7. Whoever's doing the graphics down there, 7.7. And anyway, last Gandolfini performance, so definitely worth seeing it for that reason alone. Bye-bye.